Bacon online. Beer online. Bamsters online. All systems are. The cake is not a lie.
Hello, and welcome to episode 108 of the Bamsters podcast. I, myself, Draconusx, am here with you today. I'm joined by
PFC Calico. Right, thank you very much, guys, for joining us on today's podcast. So, what have we got today, Drac?
Well, this week we're just going to go over a few interesting things that we've seen in news that have caught our attention. And first up, we've got like some giant overpowered blob. The studio Bethesda has absorbed another studio called Battlecry Studios.
Doesn't this sound very reminiscent of what EA does?
Could be. Hopefully not to the same style as EA. I have a little more respect for Bethesda and the things that they do than I do with EA.
Whatever do you mean, Drac? I have no idea what you're on about. EA is an upstanding developer and publisher. Nothing but the best comes out of them.
Yeah, I couldn't keep a straight face for that.
Yeah, we all kind of know, and some of us probably remember what happened to Westwood Studios, our beloved developers of the Command & Conquer series, and also Maxis, or rather a section of Maxis, who developed SimCity, another beloved series, both never to be seen again thanks to the gaping maw of EA. So yeah, I sincerely hope that Bethesda don't make the same moves. So what's happened with Battlecry Studios then, apart from just being absorbed? Anything?
Well, this looks like it was kind of already a subsidiary of ZeniMax that started in 2012, and it had brought in talent from places like Star Wars, the Old Republic, and Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies. Some of the people working there had worked on those titles, and they were working on some type of game called. It was basically going to be a free-to-play multiplayer game called Battlecry. And that got put on hold, and then they actually eventually ended up working to help with ID Software on the multiplayer DLC for Doom.
Very good. So a lot of experience then for Bethesda, who we all know from the sounds of it, that's a lot of MMO experience. I mean, Ultima Online, it's essentially the first MMO. So do you think they're going to be dragging them into their new sci-fi MMO that's kind of Fallout-esque?
Well, and that's kind of where I was wondering if this topic might go, is, are we going to theorize if they're working on a Fallout MMO?
Well, I hope they are, but I don't think it's going to be set in the Fallout universe, because I don't think they want to make the same mistakes like they initially did with the Elder Scrolls Online.
Do tell.
Well, when I beta tested it, let's just say that although the concept was good, a lot of promises were made, a lot of hype around it, and Bethesda didn't completely crumble underneath the hype train. They certainly had to take a knee to it, but they did bring it back, and Elder Scrolls Online is definitely where it should have been on release, so they had to make a lot of changes very quickly to meet the promises that they made initially, or at least what they alluded to, and that's half the problem, isn't it? A developer says one thing, but the consumer or the gamer takes another thing from whatever they've said in their blogs. But either way, hopefully they'll learn from it, and that's why I don't think they'll make it a Fallout franchised title, because you've got a lot of long-term fans, myself included, in that. So I wouldn't want to see a beloved franchise or a beloved series of games to be mistreated. We're not talking like Command & Conquer mistreated, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things that I think developers kind of have to tread lightly, especially with long-term franchises like that.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the beta when it came out. I didn't want to play too much of it because I didn't want to ruin it for when the actual game came out. But I will say this, regardless of how folks took it when it released, or how long maybe they felt it took to get where it needed to be, one thing I kind of have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with, but I certainly can't complain about, is the sheer amount of content in Elder Scrolls Online. A lot of times
there is loads.
Yeah, a lot of times with an MMO, that's the complaint, not enough content. And I think it's probably the only MMO I've played where I went the opposite direction and actually had content exhaustion from playing the game too much.
Well, yeah, but then you get other instances like World of Warcraft's Barons, if you've ever heard of that. It was barren in not only name, it was barren in content, barren in chat, it was just barren. It was a bleak place if you were leveling a Horde character. There was absolutely nothing. You know, you had like 1 or 2 quest hubs that gave you 3 or 4 quests, but originally it was pretty much the stepping stone to go from like level, well, probably about level 10 to level 20, and there weren't enough quests there to do it by questing, so you'd get up to about level, well, I don't know, probably 13, 14, and then you were left for pretty much 7 levels either grinding dungeons or grinding mobs out in the world, and it was dire. It really was. Desolus was another place where they decided to take the name literally. But that's quite an old game now, isn't it? You know, it's very medieval styling. And speaking of which, of medieval, we've got a Viking-based game from an indie developer. We've got Northgard, which has released from early access. And that was last week, with the beginning of its single-player campaign. How much do you know about Northgard?
I've had it on my wish list for a while now. It's definitely something I'm keen to take a look at. Only problem is it's just hitting me at a rough time because I just picked up Vermintide 2 and oh man, there was another one that I pre-ordered. I'm getting ready to pre-order Far Cry 5 as well. So it's just, it's hitting me at a rough time. I'm going to have to pick it up later, but I definitely have an interest in taking a look at it.
Well, those of our listeners that don't know what Northgard is, it's kind of a combination between Banished, if any of you have had the pleasure of playing it, and a zone control type RTSs like Dawn of War, Company of Heroes, but you actually build the base. So kind of like Ruse. Ruse, do you remember that? Do you ever played that at all, Ruse?
I don't think I played that one, or at least if I did, I can't remember.
World War II style game, very similar in mechanics to Northgard, but old. Northgard, again, very good game, well worth a look. I'm halfway through the campaign myself at the minute, so you have definitely got a nice little gem to look forward to there, Drac.
Ah, so you've already been playing then?
Oh yes, I've been playing pretty much as soon as it released on early access.
Nice.
Speaking of Vikings, we've got Mount&Blade 2. Not much has been heard of them since they were announced initially at 2012. 6 years and still not released. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's been delayed, abandoned? I mean, I know there's been the occasional developer blog, but Tailworlds kind of haven't been doing very much recently development-wise, have they?
Do you think they maybe just went quiet while they're trying to push content together, or... I mean, I don't know. Mount&Blade was a title that I remember from way back, but you're right. I don't think I've heard anything on that in quite a while.
Well, it was originally slated for a release on, 4th quarter 2016? Got delayed to 2017 and still nothing. And we're end of pretty much 1st quarter 2018 with still no confirmed release date. So, yeah, if anyone knows anything more concrete, please comment in the comment section below. But yeah, no, this is definitely one I would look forward to. An open world situation that I think everyone enjoyed that played it, but definitely a classic title, the original ones. I mean, I only really played Warband, none of the expansions like Napoleonic Wars or what was the other one, Fire and Ice, I think it was.
If you're waiting for me to confirm, you're going to be waiting, sorry.
Cue awkward moment. So, going back to classics, we've got another classic series that is being revamped with a couple of titles and has been enjoying a bit of success as a multiplayer game, and that classic is Mechwarrior. I had the pleasure of playing pretty much most of the Mechwarrior series since they came out on PC, and we've got Battletech, which is a turn-based strategy game releasing April this year. And we've got Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, which is done by Piranha Games, which is releasing 4th quarter this year, supposedly. Those of you that may have been tying into that have possibly been watching it with a little bit of interest. And Piranha Games, for those of you that don't know, are the makers of Mechwarrior Online. So if you avoided the multiplayer version because you don't like playing against other people and you prefer the story-driven, then Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries is slated to be fourth quarter this year. I noticed that you've got something here, Drac. Speaking of space and robots and sci-fi, we've got Defiance 2050.
Hold on a second. We can still do a little more on Mechwarrior.
Oh, can we? Oh, joy. I'm
Yeah.
so happy.
I didn't get to ask any questions.
Sorry.
Yeah, when you first mentioned Mechwarrior 5, I got it confused with Battletech, which, because I was thinking, oh, it's, another turn-based, which I'm not a huge fan of turn-based. It can be done well, and it can be kind of fun, but I do prefer real-time. I got a question for you about Mechwarrior 5, though. Is it going to have co-op? Will you be able to play with one friend or a couple of friends?
4-player co-op.
Ah, I love that. Yeah, that'll definitely be something we play at our LAN sessions then.
So you can play as a lance of friends doing the missions. Now, if it's anything like Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, the more lance mates you have, the more difficult the missions became, if I remember rightly.
Well, that would make sense.
Well, yeah, I hope that is the case as well, because there'll be nothing worse than, yay, co-op! Oh my god, it's so easy, it's boring. It would ruin it for me.
Well, most games up the difficulty in one way or another when you're playing co-op as you add players. Some of them make the enemies more spongy when it comes to taking hits. Some of them increase the amount of enemies, some do both. So
I wouldn't want that, to be honest. What I would like to see is dynamic missions. So, say for instance you've dropped onto a planet and the main objective that you would normally have as single player would be to say, I don't know, take out the radar installation. Well, with 2 people you've got to take out the radar installation and the defense network. With 3 people you've got to do 3 things. With 4 people you've got to do 4 things. So it just opens up more areas of the map. You've got to be a bit more tactical about who you send where. Or you could go as a group, but you have a time limit, so you've got to split the group up and add a bit more of a dynamic that way. I hate it when developers are a bit lazy on the arbitrary difficulty where they just, as you say, make the mobs a bit more spongy, or they just add more of them. It doesn't really make it difficult, it just makes it a pain in the arse. There's no challenge there, there's nothing to think about, you just end up hitting things more.
yeah, if they get a little too spongy, Division, I'm looking at you, then the fun level does kind of go quite a bit down. Yeah,
especially when they also do a lot more damage to you as well. I think Bam and I had a really poor experience at the power plant at heroic difficulty, trying to 2-man it.
Yeah, a lot of, at least with the Division anyway, a lot of it I found has to do with how you gear yourself towards specific types of encounters. So if you can gear yourself, especially for those higher end yellow guys with all the armor, to punch through that armor quickly and then take them down, it becomes a lot more fun that way than if you're just constantly wailing on them and not getting through that armor.
Yeah, but then you're kind of being focused onto a certain build, and with Mechwarrior that would just definitely take the fun out of it. If you have to run with a lance of, say, a scout mech with 3 LRM boats, or doing something similar where you're forced into high damage burst builds for the sake of completing the mission, I think you should be everything within reason. Obviously, barring really ridiculous builds like nothing but flamers or machine guns, everything within reason should be viable. Or they balance the game to the default layouts, and do it that way. That'll probably be their best bet, because the defaults generally are a bit balanced in what's on them. Nothing too extreme.
Well, I have one other question about Mechwarrior before we move on, and it was something I used to love to do in the tabletop game when I played. As a last resort, because of the amount of damage it would do to your own mech. But, if you were going down anyway, you had nothing to lose. So, have you seen anything? Will the death from above option be available?
Well, if it's anything like the Mechwarrior Online, yes, you can do death from above. That is a feature within the online game. It's very difficult to do because you've got to hit the cockpit. For certain mechs, like the Atlas, or maybe the Warhammer, where you've got like big shoulders that kind of get in the way, maybe like the Zeus, where your cockpit is kind of quite small, but you've got these big shoulders in the way. You've kind of got to hit that bang on. But yes, you can do it.
That was always a fun thing to do if you were going down anyway.
Oh yeah, take it like a Viking.
So moving on then, we'll stick in the futuristic realm, but if any of you had seen or played the MMO Defiance that was based on Sci-Fi's TV series that had one, or was it maybe 2 seasons?
I think it was 2.
Now. Yeah, I think it might have been. But they have beta signups for Defiance 2050, which you can go over to their website and sign up for that. Signups are on PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Sweet, I think I'll be looking into that one because I played the original MMO and I have at least 2 of the seasons on Blu-ray.
I enjoyed this series. I like that, and
it was a unique sort of take, wasn't it? You know, to have the TV series link so closely to the game.
Yeah, that was something that was pretty cool, the way that they did that, and you know, with the TV series kind of leading, at least story-wise, until it was over with the game. But the game itself, I found fun to play, although after a while it kind of felt a little repetitive, or a little too repetitive, and I did get a little bored with it. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with Defiance 2050, and you know, what kinds of things you can do in there and how they tie that in with the original game.
I think that's a symptom of most MMOs, though, even World of Warcraft, for as long as it has been going. Most of it boils down to either kill quests, fetch quests, read a text quest, or an escort quest, and that's it. You know, there have been very few games where I've seen at least enough of a variation on it to make it feel fresh. But yeah, no, I look forward to see what they do. Next thing I've got is Rimworld's next big patch is version 1.0. For those of you that haven't or don't know what Rimworld is similar to Prison Architect in art style, where you have a group of survivors of sorts, either from a crashed spaceship or a group from a tribe, and you've got to build a thriving colony where the longer you spend within an area, the more difficult the game becomes, to the point where you're being besieged by 20 or 30 raging tribals or mechanized AI robots or whatever. And I believe the community is well founded and it's got a lot of good support, which is great to see for an indie developer, definitely. And just to add another sort of notch to their bow, this game has been developed by one man, and that's, you know, it's very successful already. So kudos to them and good luck for the big release.
We said patch version 1.0. I think typically when we see things released, they're version 1 and then the patches go from there. So did they just start out at like version 0.1, or was this in early access?
It was, yeah, it's early access. Let me just check, because again, this is one of the ones in my library. So what they've been doing is they've been doing like alpha, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then where the Tynan Sylvester, who's the developer, he's been basically getting it to a point where he feels comfortable making it to the big 1.0.
Well, and that's cool. And anytime I see a game that's been made by one developer or 2 developers, you know, even just a small team of developers, it's usually pretty impressive, because there's a lot that can go into these games anymore.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think the tools are out there now, aren't there, really, to allow people to do that. But if I remember correctly, he's been on some big-name development teams, so he's not exactly a rookie to the development world, thankfully. And it's probably what he owes his success to, I would imagine. I mean, he's even written a book on games development, for crying out loud. The next section, so if he's written a book, could we not call that almost advertising for like microtransactions or other forms of economic buy-in to a game or anything like that? I know that you've been wanting to talk about sort of not in-depth economics about something, but you've got a mention here on State of Decay 2's state of microtransactions. So what's going on with that?
Well, I know we've talked in previous episodes and on the Discord a little bit, or off and on, I should say, about everything that's been going on with the EA loot boxes and whatnot. And of course, you've got everybody else in the industry who's been talking about loot boxes and microtransactions and stuff. One of the cool things with regards to State of Decay 2, which now I hadn't played the first, but I'm really looking forward to the second because it has co-op, it has drop-in, drop-out co-op, and the way that this game looks to play, especially with co-op, looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Got a couple of buddies that are also going to be picking up the game, so we're going to be, playing in each other's sandboxes, so to speak. But they've come out and said no microtransactions in State of Decay 2, which I think is really cool because we wouldn't be the first people to say it. I think others around, including Jim Sterling, have mentioned that, with the controversy of loot boxes, that one of the perils is that now microtransactions, which were one of the, I guess at once considered abhorrent type things in game development, will now be looked at in a positive light, and we're seeing that. I think Sea of Thieves was one of the ones that was being hailed for not having loot boxes, but they're going to have microtransactions or something like that, if I remember right. But I get why game companies are looking for other streams of income. I understand that, especially if you're a small development house or an indie dev, why those other streams of income are important. Not so much. I'm not sure that I buy it for a lot of the AAA studios because when you see the millions of copies that they sell, I think that the amount of money they're still making from that is still outperforming what they spent to make the game. Of course, that's just my opinion. I don't have any hard facts on it, although I would love to see the numbers.
I don't think anyone really has any hard facts, do they? They're certainly keeping those cards close to their chest.
Which, to me, almost feels to just back up that point, that they are making so much more money than they're spending. And, otherwise, why wouldn't they be willing to put that information out there? If a game is, making, we'll say 5 million sales and it, costs $60 a pop, if they're not willing to come out and say, hey, it actually cost us more to make the game than we're making here. I don't know. I think it's like a Hollywood movie. You hear about the millions or the hundreds of millions that they spend, but then you see the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions that they make. I think video games are very similar in that respect, that they're probably making quite a bit more than what they're actually spending.
Well, yeah. As you quite rightly put it, and I fully agree with you, for the smaller developers, you can kind of sympathise with them, and you can kind of understand sort of why they would do it. But what I disagree with is sort of the pay-to-win sort of method that you do see with some games, and where it becomes almost a necessity to buy in to it. But microtransactions for, say, cosmetic items, things to just make you look good that have no gameplay effect whatsoever, I've got personally no issue with at all. And your loot boxes, for instance, if they do that, fine. Chuck them in as much as you like as a nice to have. A little bit of a bonus to go, look, thank you for playing our game for this long. Here, have a loot box with the chance of getting some free cosmetic stuff. I mean, Overwatch does it, as far as I've seen. The last time I played it was quite a while ago. But as far as I've seen it, it was just mainly skins and voiceover packs and stuff like that. It didn't have any gameplay effect whatsoever. I don't know if that's changed since then. But no, I fully agree.
Yeah, and I think that always tends to be the breaking point between what makes loot boxes or microtransactions okay in the eyes of a player. And, I think by far and large, a lot of players are okay, just like as you mentioned, if it's cosmetic, it's cool, no problem. But if it gives you an edge on gameplay, especially if there's some kind of PvP type scenario, that it doesn't have a place, because then it does become, who's willing to spend that paycheck to get the advantage. Yeah.
Another form of economic use that games make nowadays is the cross-play function, which I think has been talked about recently with Fortnite.
Yeah, I'm excited about this, I'm not going to lie. I've played it a little bit on PC and PS4, although just barely a little bit. But my preferred place to play games is PC, and a lot of you guys play on PS4.
PC Master Race.
Yeah, but like Jolly's always playing, but I'm pretty sure he's playing on his console. And same with Bam, when they're playing stuff, they're always on the console. And so to me, this is cool because this allows people who have friends, maybe you have an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One, and your buddy's got a PS4. So finally, it looks like there's going to be a pretty big name game that a lot of people are playing, and be able to actually play that as crossplay. One thing that did have me scratching my head with this, though, before I read this, I wasn't even aware that they were working on Fortnite on mobile. And I guess with mobile, you'll be able to participate in the crossplay as well. I wonder just how competitive somebody can be versus someone playing on a console or someone playing on a PC with a mobile device. I'm sure that there are people out there that can be competitive with it, but for the majority of folks, I just wonder how much fun or how competitive they can be on a mobile device.
I think what they would have to do is they would still put them through in as cross-platform, but maybe put them in a preferred pool of other mobile players. But then if there's not enough players to make a match, then they start chucking them in with the PC players and the console players to make up numbers.
Well, I thought I saw somewhere that they said that if you wanted to be considered for crossplay, if you were on, like, say, a mobile device, you would have to opt into it.
Yeah, which is fair enough. You know the risks, then you know the fact that potentially you're going to get your ass handed to you at every turn. So I suppose then, if that's the case, you're not afraid of getting, shall we say, a shotgun up the rear, then go for it. It's certainly something to look toward, especially as mobile devices get more and more powerful. It might be something to look out for in the future.
Yeah, I mean, some of the tablets out there, I'm sure you can probably hook a Bluetooth controller to, so it would be very similar to playing on a console, I suppose.
Yeah, well, obviously you got the Apple iPhone's controller accessory, which kind of turns it into like the old Game Gear, the Sega Game Gears, and the PS Vitas. But as far as I know, there's kind of been one monkey wrench being thrown into this. And as usual, it's kind of between the big consoles again, Xbox and PlayStation. One of them, and I'm probably betting it's PlayStation, isn't playing ball. There is not going to be crossplay between the Xbox and PlayStation, and that was announced today, in fact. But what will happen is if you're on Xbox, you'll be able to play with PS4, other Xbox players, and mobile players. If you're on PlayStation, you'll play with PC, Mac, and mobile. Sorry, just to clarify, Xbox will play with Mac as well. But there will be no crossplay between PS4 and Xbox, which is unfortunate. Because...
so that's the breakdown then.
That's the breakdown, yeah. Xbox, somebody on Xbox messaged the head of Xbox and basically said, we would like to see Fortnite crossplay, and he said, yeah, so would we. And... Epic Games turned around and said, yeah, so would we. And then kind of Sony kind of went, well, screw you guys, I'm going home, basically. I don't understand why they're doing it. I really don't, considering they're cutting out a large portion of their market now, because now players will have to decide, especially if, here we're quite fortunate. I think most of us in our group have got PlayStations or PCs, really. But if you've got a diverse group of friends, or maybe you're the only one with a PlayStation and a PC, and you own a PC as well, but the rest of your friends all own Xboxes, for instance, then you're not going to buy Fortnite or play it on the PlayStation. You're going to play it on the PC, which Sony's screwing themselves over a player base, basically. Why do it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I think I had mentioned this a little over a year or two ago when I had started on this show, and we had talked about crossplay back then and how much, a lot of us had wanted to see that. And they said to me that in the previous iterations of the consoles, the previous generations, that when Xbox was ahead, Sony was the one that was reaching out and talking about how they would love to do crossplay. but Xbox was like, oh hell no, basically because they held the market share and they didn't feel the need to, play nice. And now that it's the other way around, where Sony has a larger portion of the market share, they've got more people owning PlayStations than folks who own Xboxes. They're doing the same thing. So I'm not sure if this is one of those vindictive type things, or if it's a business decision that, we've got a larger market share, we don't feel the need to play nice.
But then I think things like that end up biting you in the arse later on, as point proven with Microsoft. It's bitten them in the arse, and Sony now holds the market share. So who knows, we might end up with another swing again with Microsoft taking the lead, in the years to come.
Well, and just like when parents fight, it's the kids that suffer. I mean, it's the customers who suffer this because, just like you mentioned, if you are the only friend in a group of friends and for some reason you got an Xbox One and all your other friends got PlayStations, you don't get to play with your friends, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's driven me away from certain games just because they're either Xbox only or PlayStation only or not cross-platform, because I'm sitting there thinking, well, I bought this to play with my friends, but I can't. And there's no way I'm going to pay pretty much double that to play this game.
It's one of the reasons I haven't played a Halo game since, Halo 2? When they stopped bringing them out on PC and they were Xbox exclusive, I didn't play them anymore because I wasn't buying an Xbox simply just to play Halo.
No, it's not worth it, is it really, if that was the only game you played? Well,
that and, I want to play with keyboard and mouse, so...
PC Master Race.
Hashtag pretty much.
I think we've kind of been discussing just a little niff-naff and trivia in our Discord, one of which has been the Joker backstory film. Now, it's all really just been rumour mill and kind of a bit of a chit-chat really in our Discord chat. I noticed that the general consensus was we didn't really want it to be like The Killing Joke.
Yeah, look, one of the coolest things about the Joker character is the fact that he is shrouded in so much mystery. And, you've got some different stories about how he became the Joker. Of course, the most prevalent one is, the story of Batman dropping him into the chemical vat. But the cool thing is that you've never really known, other than The Killing Joke, you've never known a lot about that character. And so he's kind of shrouded in mystery. And I don't know. I'm not because I think that's such an integral part of that character, I'm not a big fan of them trying to really flesh that out and bring a lot of details to that, because I just feel it takes away from the character.
Yeah, but then do you not think that even just sort of a little look, a slice of his backstory that we can look into kind of fleshes out the character a little bit? I mean, we know that, as far as the games and some of the comics have taught us, he had some sort of deep relationship with Harley, not being deep as in girlfriend, boyfriend, but they were affected by each other. They interacted with each other pretty much in a very similar way that Batman and Robin did.
Well, and see, this is something that I would love for TJ to sit in on, because of course he's going to know the details a lot better than I do. There are things that I know, and of course probably more things that I have forgotten because my memory is crap. But to my recollection, at least in the original part of Harley's origin, she didn't meet Joker until he was already the Joker. And he manipulated her. In
Arkham Asylum.
Correct, yeah, and he manipulated her, and she kind of falls in love with him in a strange and...
Platonic?
No, dysfunctional way. Very dysfunctional way.
Yeah, just a bit.
If you actually look at the relationship between Harley and the Joker, it is extremely dysfunctional.
It's a very abusive one, isn't it? Whenever anything goes wrong, he tends to beat up on her and kind of blame her for everything, but she still stands by him. She must be a fan of Dolly Parton.
Oh. Ouch. But yeah, no, I just I would be cool with seeing on the screen, not because I want to see him beating the crap out of her or anything. I think that would tell an interesting story, especially if it's only the first part of the story, and then you see like Harley get away from him, kind of get her independence from him. That I think would be an interesting story, and would be cool to see on the big screen. But I don't know. I like the mystique of not really knowing a lot about his actual backstory, and I kind of try to. I don't know. I kind of try to ignore some of the stuff from The Killing Joke because I think it takes away from the character.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, the mystique and also very much his obsession with Batman. Do you think then that they should explore more that side of things to expand on his story as to why he obsesses? I mean, is that ever explored in the games or the comics? As far as I remember, it's not really. We know it's there. It's always the way he interacts with Batman. But nobody really explains why he obsesses. It's just something that the Joker does. Do you think that should be explored as opposed to why or how he became the Joker?
Well, I think it's something that if you're going to explore that in a movie, you need to have Batman in that movie. I mean, how can you really explore that without actually having those two characters, meet on screen and, have dialogue and stuff like that? I think in some ways, this is another perfect topic for TJ to sit in on. I wish he was here today. But in some ways, I kind of think, and I know I've seen it compared this way, but it's like two sides of the same coin, Batman is very strong and very logical and very composed. The Joker is the opposite of that.
So, if we were to have a film then, which Batman would you have? Would you have Val Kilmer, George Clooney, or maybe Christian Bale? Which Batman would you like to see, and which Joker would you like to see?
If I could pick any of them, it would be Keaton's Batman versus Heath Ledger's Joker.
Ooh, good choice. Definitely with the Joker. I agree with you on the Joker.
I know there's TJ's not too fond of the Dark Knight movies, and I get some of the arguments why, but still, actually, if I could take The Dark Knight Returns, and actually just string together the scenes with Heath Ledger's Joker, he played that part amazingly. And I don't want to take anything away from like Jack Nicholson, because at the time that those movies came out, his Joker was great. It's just there was a certain piece of the Joker, I think, that was missing in the earlier films, only because it was played more lighthearted.
Yeah, more conservatively, more comic-like.
Yeah, and the same thing with the old TV series with Adam West and all those guys, and it was great for its time, just like I think Heath Ledger's Joker was great at its time. The only one that I can't really take seriously, and it's nothing against his acting ability, is Jared Leto's Joker. I thought that the psychotic part of the character that he played, I thought he did really well with it, but I just couldn't get past the visuals of the facial tattoos and the Dirty South grill. That more than anything else killed it for me, because at least in my opinion, that from what I've always seen of the Joker, he takes a really big pride in his appearance. And with the sort of greased hair and the neat suit, albeit in very garish colours, but it was all very well cut, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And I just can't see someone who takes that kind of pride in their appearance doing the grill and the tattoos. And I get that somebody would say, could argue from the other side that, based on, where he either grew up or what his environment was like, that the guys in gangs and stuff like that is part of their pride. I get that, but I don't think that fits this character. So do you think with the Jared Leto's Joker that they tried to modernize the character, so to speak? Because if you think when Batman was originally produced, the main gangs at the time were really the mafia, hence your clean-cut suits, the well-trimmed hair, everything was, perfect. Whereas I absolutely agree with that. In fact, I would say he's a victim of that modernization.
Do you think it's been in a bad way? Because everybody's got this sort of persona of the Joker, this image of the Joker that's managed to stand the test of time so well that it even translates very well into the modern Batmans, as we saw with Heath Ledger. Albeit he wasn't so clean cut, but he certainly rocked it in that nurse's outfit and certainly tried to keep that neat and tidy, didn't he, after the explosion?
Yeah, I would say that is a little departure from what you would normally expect of the character with regards to that. And it's funny because that didn't bother me as much because I enjoyed finally getting to see a psychotic Joker, which I felt had been missing from prior live action displays of the character.
Well, it's not just the psychotic side, though, it's his sort of... We saw the manipulative intelligence, and that's the key thing. Joker's not stupid. He's very, very intelligent, and we see that in his manipulation of Two-Face in the hospital. And, if they could capture that and kind of bring it into his backstory and maybe show that in his Arkham Asylum stage with Harley, that it kind of shows him not to be the goofball villain, the sort of comedy relief villain, but as a genuine, intelligent threat that most fans know him to be.
But see, that's one of the things that I think is cool about keeping the mystique of the character is, because immediately your question is, well, how is he like that? How does he know how to do those things? How does he know to get under somebody's skin or know what buttons to push? And, if you're going with the origin of the Killing Joke, I don't think that makes much sense because he was a failed comedian, which means he couldn't read the audience. He couldn't, he wasn't able to read the crowd and to perform in a way that got the reaction that he was looking for. And yet he goes through this transformation where his mind breaks and now all of a sudden he's this criminal mastermind. That kind of doesn't fit. Yeah,
it's a bit of a mismatch, isn't it, when you actually say it out loud?
Yeah, but again, that's why I was saying I think that's part of the fun of the mystique is not knowing, what he did beforehand or who he was or how he's able to do these things.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it'd be great to have other members of the team on to really get going on this discussion. As far as I think, there's no more to discuss. I don't think I've got any more points. Have you got anything, Drac?
No, I think we're going to close it up for the week, and thank you guys for joining us again. Make sure if you've got any questions or comments to post those in the comment section or hit us up on Twitter.
Yep, please do. As always, hit the like and subscribe button, and see you next time. And as always, I'm Batman.